Hello and welcome to the 17th episode of the This Week in Hollywood podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Adam Robson, joined by the great Reese Wiegman.
Feels good to be here, as always.
We are just running through these. Now, we had an audio issue last week, but I can assure everyone that has been fixed, and we have a pretty big episode here, I think, to kind of make up for that. We're going to be pretty much reviewing two movies this week with Oldboy and our movie of the week, Magnolia, from last week. Very excited to get into this. Normally, we would start with our upcoming films. We're kind of going to push that back because of something going on in general movie news that we will get to. So we're going to drive straight into our Oldboy review here. It got remastered recently, released in cinemas. I had seen this before. Reese, I don't think you've seen this before, right?
Yeah, hadn't seen it before. Always on the list, of course. And then whenever I heard it was getting the remaster and going to get put back in theaters, kind of shelved it for a while. So got a chance to go check it out with a friend over the weekend and had a freaking blast watching this thing. I mean, just like, I don't even kind of know how to start talking about this movie aside from just saying I think Park Chan-wook is just a madman and just does like whatever he wants, like storytelling, very Shakespearean in nature, but then also just like throws any idea he has up on screen, just like some crazy visual thing, like having a CGI ant and like, well, just, but then it'll happen for one scene and then never return again for the rest of the movie. Just real crazy guy shit.
Yeah, so we're going to probably go into some spoilers here. I will throw up a time code on screen right now so that if you guys have not seen this and are planning to see it, go ahead and skip so you don't spoil it for yourself. I would definitely recommend seeing this movie. I think it is one of the better foreign language films, I would say. But yeah, let's get right into it. So without having seen it before, going into this, did you know anything about the story at all? Any idea of what happens?
I mean, I didn't know the big twist. Like, I didn't know the thing. But, I mean, I knew it was, this revenge story that he gets kind of put away for a long time, then goes and enacts his revenge. So I knew the very, very general idea of it. But as far as the nitty-gritty of it, I was, I got all that for the first time.
That's good. Okay, so obviously it starts off, and I think the opening is done very well on the top of that building. And then immediately jumping back in time to like 15 years before, which he does look extremely different as soon as it jumps. That's one of the things that sometimes gets on my nerves when like you do a time jump and they look the same or not like old enough or well done. Oppenheimer did that very well in that movie. And this, I think, is also done very well. And what did you think of the editing in this movie? Because I think a lot of the humor or laughs come from the editing.
Yeah, super. Like that's where like all the comedic timing comes from, right? It's just like just from those edits, and that's so well done. And I think just even not to put all these things in a box, but like something that Parasite does very well, also.
Yes, Parasite's editing is also done very well, and then just the idea. Obviously, then we go a little bit forward. He's drunk at the police station, and then as he's trying to get back to his daughter for her birthday. He gets kidnapped. We see him, he's completely gone. And then he gets put in this, it's not even a prison. It's very interesting where he goes. Like the idea of that building, that basically if you have an enemy or just a vendetta against someone, you can pay them and they will put someone in a room for as long as you want. And he ends up being stuck in this room for 15 years, which I thought was ridiculous.
Crazy. And that there's like, so much of the movie's delivered through voiceover, which is pretty remarkable just because a lot of times, voiceover is regarded to be like a fairly cheaty way to do filmmaking, but I thought it was done so well here. And you get that really great line after he asks like the guard or worker person who comes by and he's pleading with him and saying, I've been here for 2 months already. Like, how many more is it going to be? And he was like, I don't know if it would have been better or worse if I was going to know that I was going to be here for 15 years.
That would be tough.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine like being in that situation myself, just like, because it's not even a prison. Like he's treated fairly well. He's in his own room.
Like an apartment.
Yeah. And he gets food. It's the same food every single day that gets burned into his brain, which starts him on this kind of revenge mission. But at the same time, it's not like prison food. It's like wontons and a bunch of other stuff. And then he I really like when he's in there, just showing like him breaking down for like the first couple of years. He just doesn't do anything. He's in disbelief. He attempts suicide a couple times with cutting his wrist. And then he's just like, all right, I'm going to learn how to be a fighter now. And then spends like a year fighting, just punching the wall. Then he does a couple of years of trying to break out. And then where he's, chiseling through that wall. And he finally gets outside and he gets some rain on his hand. And then he just completely, I wouldn't say like loses his mind, but you can definitely tell like it played on him in some way.
Yeah, he cracked. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, very much, especially with the ants, like we were talking about. And then he finally gets out. First of all, his release in that red box might be one of my favorite scenes from this movie. Just how he's in that green field after he's hypnotized, and then it's like crappy weeds on top of that skyscraper that we saw in the beginning of the movie.
So cool. Yeah, that was just visually so good. After we've seen
Yes.
the same thing for so long, we've been stuck in that room, and then just
Yeah.
getting to see that box out there is so cool.
Yes, and then obviously, he tells the guy who's trying to jump off the building and kill himself his story, and then when it's that guy's turn to tell his story, he doesn't
He walks
care,
away.
just walks away completely, and that guy does end up jumping. And then we get on this, I don't know if I call it a slow burn, because, some people I've heard refer to this as an action movie, and I feel it's very much not an action movie. Besides the one long hallway scene, which we will get to, it's very much this revenge tale of him being taken in by this woman, Mido, I think is her name. And, and then you get the reveal of the bad guy. And immediately the bad guy plays on him like, okay, you could kill me, but then you'll never learn the answer as to why you were locked up for 15 years, which is what he really wants. Like, you really get the
Right.
sense that above anything from when he gets out, he just wants to know why he was in there.
Yeah, and like such a good twist. I guess I don't know,
Yes.
just different take on the genre, and not just have a straightforward, get revenge, fight through a bunch of henchmen, get your answers from the right people, find the bad guy, kill the bad guy. Like, he has the power and the ability and the means to kill his enemy from the get go, but that's not what he's there for, and that's what keeps the movie going, keeps it so interesting. Great storytelling
Yes.
device.
I would agree. And just kind of like, even then, he's like, okay, well, if you can't kill me, eventually you could find this out. Or if you figure out who I am and why I punished you, I will pretty much reveal to you why I did this, which kind of is weird because in a way, if he figures out what he did to anger him, that's obviously why you're going to be in prison. But I still think it works pretty well. And then obviously we get the action scene coming out of when he goes back to his imprisonment area to kind of figure out why he was there, who put him in there. The long action scene. Now, we all know that you are not a big fan of mindless action. What did you think of that scene?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a pretty great scene, right? And well, it was interesting because I don't know if you stayed for like the little discussion like after the credits rolled that they had in theaters, but they had a little interview.
I did not, because I went with my mom and my dad,
Okay,
and after
sure,
this
sure, sure, sure.
movie, they wanted to leave immediately. They were not fans. Um, Obviously, you can tell why. But what was in the interview? Because I kind of did want to stay for it, but I figured it was a losing battle. So what was in the interview?
They touched on it really quickly, but Park basically said that he doesn't like directing action sequences, and so it wasn't ever supposed to be a oneer. But whenever they got there, he's like, I was just kind of lazy and just didn't want to shoot all the coverage that I had planned. He's like, and then whenever I saw in rehearsals, I saw that to get the exhaustion at the end,
Yeah.
whenever Odie like falls to the ground whenever he's done with it, he's like, we could only do that if we did it as a oneer. So it was a mix of doing that, him not liking to direct action, and him just being lazy and not wanting to shoot coverage all day. And so, like, it's so funny to think like shooting that oneer has to be is so much harder than shooting coverage.
Yes.
No, that was a really incredible scene for that one scene basically being the only real action in the whole movie.
Yeah, we get a small action scene earlier when he takes a cigarette from somebody, very tiny. That's the big one. And it's not like it holds up to more modern, like, I keep referencing this because it is currently my favorite, I don't know if favorite action movie, but best practical action, John Wick 4. It's not action like that, but after hearing what he said about the end, he's definitely right. You can't get that exhaustion from your characters unless you let them do the whole take. I thought it did a very good job of that.
Like completely, yeah. It's really remarkable to see that, and you're not going to get that same response if you shoot coverage. You're shooting multiple takes. Like you have to get that all
Yeah.
in one.
Exactly. And then he continues looking for this guy, eventually leading him to go to his old school, which is where the name of the movie comes from. He went to the academy where they were the Evergreen Old Boys. That was their mascot. And we figure out the reason that this guy put him in a prison, air quotes, is because when they were in high school, the day that Odesu, who is our main character that was in prison, was about to transfer to Seoul, a different city in South Korea, he saw the bad guy and his sister getting a little too close, to put it lightly. It later comes out that they were engaging in some interesting activities,
Sure.
and this led to rumors at the school that eventually led to the sister killing herself on a bridge. Everyone thinks that nobody was there, but we eventually learned that her brother was actually there and tried to stop her and didn't. And because of this, that is why Odesu was put in prison. But that is not the whole extent, which we will also get to, of what happens. He then goes to the penthouse, and this gets revealed. And this is where the big twist happens. Odesu thinks he's figured him out. And he's like, oh, this is why you did it. It's pathetic. You've held a grudge this long. She was obviously not in the right to do that, but also you shouldn't have put me in a prison for 15 years. And then we get the big twist. Now, what did you think of the twist?
I mean, the twist kind of made everything for me. I mean, I don't know if my jaws ever totally dropped the way that it did whenever that reveal came out. And like, I mean, I was digging the movie, but like when that happened, it would all just kind of click for me. I was like, this is nuts. Like
Yes.
this shit is crazy. My jaw, like I said, literally dropped and stayed dropped for a while when that reveal happened. I mean, just the gall to just go for that and write that in there is
Especially in like
crazy.
that kind, like just in a movie, like you would not expect that. And before I tell what the twist is, because obviously you'll need to know what the twist is to understand this, the music when he's looking through that picture book and he sees all the pictures that reveal the twist to
Mm,
Odesu, that might be some of the best music in this whole movie for sure. That scene has the best music, but in a long time that I've seen, like it is really impactful. That build as he's
yep.
going through
Good
that.
call. Yeah, very much so.
And then, so the reveal is that when Odesu was in captivity, he was hypnotized multiple times, and the lady who eventually takes him in and kind of nurses him back to health and helps him find out who this guy is, Mido, is actually his daughter from the beginning of the movie. And he hypnotizes both of them to basically forget the other one, and they fall in love. And there is a very graphic scene of them having a sexy time, if you know what I mean. And it is, especially when you realize what's going on. I mean, my parents, after the movie, their first thing was, what did you bring us to? And the second one, when I asked them, did they enjoy it? They said that it was a well-made movie, but they didn't particularly like seeing incest in a movie. But just
Sure.
to go for that, like, is insane, especially because he does it twice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just for that to be like the central theme of the film. I guess not the central theme of the film, but just such a big plot point that he pulls out
Yes.
twice. And then for that not to be revealed for like that to be like the whole thing, right? That's the whole thing. And
Yeah.
then it doesn't really get revealed until like a good chunk of the way through the movie. I don't know. It's just really remarkable. Like you think
Yeah.
I just imagine like so many directors, if that was going to be their thing in the movie, they would like make that the thing of the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They wouldn't like keep that in their back pocket until an hour and 20 minutes into the thing. Like they would lead with that and try to market their movie off of shock and intrigue. Like, oh, I want to go see the incest movie because I wonder what that's about. But like that's not at all what's happening here.
Yeah. It's not at all. And then just to like, it's also like in the background so much that I don't think, I'm like pretty certain that unless you've seen the movie before, you can't predict this twist. Like I think
No,
it's so buried in there. Like this isn't that's gonna be the twist. And I mean, I gotta commend the guy for going for it. I don't love some of the, like, watching that scene back now when Mido and Odesu are together. Like it's tough to watch knowing what is actually happening. But
Yeah, I
then,
can't imagine watching it like now.
yeah,
It was so hard
it's
even whenever
almost
they play the tape and you hear the audio of
yes.
when they were together, and just hearing that again is just
Oh,
like what a great device that was. But just like damn, it's so hard to bear through that scene.
oh, exactly. And the way that he gets him again, so because the bad guy has a clicker that would stop his heart because he was like, well, if I'm gonna die from this heart failure, I want to be able to do it. And he's like, okay, Odesu, you learned everything. Now, if you press this, you can press this button to kill me. And he walks away. And when he presses the button, it doesn't kill him. It plays the recording of my
Mhm.
Mito and Odesu together, and it is really tough to listen to that, especially. And then the movie kind of winds down. It's very much like I don't want to say it sprints to the finish, but once you get that reveal, there isn't much else to do. The main bad guy kills himself, which he originally said he would do if Odesu figured out who he was. And then Odesu gets brainwashed to forget, well, not brainwashed, hypnotized by the same woman who hypnotized him originally to forget everything so that he can just be happy with Mito because
Yep.
Mito never learned of the actual twist of the plot of how they were related. And it's almost like, is that the right thing to do at the end?
No, no, it's
No,
not the right thing
not
to
at
do.
all.
I mean, I don't know what.
Definitely.
I mean, I'm not gonna like speculate on how I would play that personally either. Like, I mean, you're in a bad spot there, regardless. But
Yes,
I don't think no, that's the move either. So
I don't think so either. But yeah, that is Old Boy in a nutshell. Obviously, what would you rank this out of 10? I think this is probably like an 8.5 for me. I think I really enjoy this movie. I still watching it again. I was kind of wondering what because I haven't seen this since I've seen Parasite, so I don't know if I would like this more and I
mm.
would go back to this being my favorite foreign film. I would say definitely not. I still think Parasite is better, but this is definitely a very well made movie.
Yeah, I think it's an 8 out of 10 for me.
8 out of 10. That seems pretty right. Now the next movie we're talking about, going right into the next review. Now
Mm,
we did Reese's reviews for 3 weeks.
we
Now
did.
we're doing my Reese's recommendations. Now we're doing my recommendations, and I picked a. I did not know that you had not seen this. I didn't know you would be that excited to see this because
I
we are
was.
looking at Magnolia, the 1999 movie by Paul Thomas Anderson. I gotta say, I hadn't seen this movie in like maybe 3 4 years. Watching it again, this might be like a top 10 favorite movie of all time for me. It's definitely at least top 20. I love this movie. Love to hear what you get to say about it. Really interested to hear what you think, especially the ending, which I know throws a lot of people off. But we are obviously going to get into spoilers with this one heavily. So I will put the time code on screen now for you guys to jump ahead. And without further ado, Reese, what is your initial takeaway from this movie?
Just that it's great. Like when I was watching it, I was thinking, like, if you had to explain to someone what an orchestra was and you couldn't
Yes.
play them music, like you could show them this movie and they would have a pretty good idea of what it was.
Yes. I couldn't have said it better myself. Now, it's a very confusing movie because if for those of you who have not seen it, first of all, spoilers have already been put up there, but definitely recommend seeing this movie. It is incredible how it comes together, but it's basically 8 characters that live separate lives that are all kind of interconnected in some way or another. And the fact that he's able to create all these characters and then give them enough time to flesh them out in a 3 hour movie, which for me, the runtime flew by because you're cutting between these characters' stories so much. It's incredible.
Yeah, and the editing is really remarkable. Not even just because you're cutting between, all these different storylines is so fast, but just like the cuts are just so like such great match cuts all the time.
Yes.
It's someone like pulling out a key, and then it's one of the other characters unlocking something with a different key. Like it's just like the match cuts are just so good, and then there's those little bits of information you like pay off down the line where you see little pieces of people's characters in one scene, and then as soon as it cuts to something else in a great match cut, you know who it is immediately
Yeah.
because of their little like Donnie has like that little like pull out key thing, that little string
Yep.
situation, and you know it's him unlocking the safe. Like just stuff like that is just like the dude had everything mapped out.
Yeah. After seeing this, I even looked it up because I'm like, this had to have at least been nominated for best editing, and it didn't get that nomination. I was blown away because I'm in the
Seemed to
same
like
thing
get
with you.
nominated for anything. Does
This
it?
movie, barely got nominated, which I can't believe.
No,
But
it's just like stupid.
the editing in this, I was talking about the editing in Oldboy being good. This is better. I mean,
Yes,
like you're
no,
saying,
for
the
sure.
fact that you can cut between these characters and these stories and you don't have so much whiplash that you're just out of it, it's incredible that he was even able to do that. Like, that it all comes together.
And yeah, it's so rhythmic and just yeah, you never get bored of a scene. A scene never really overstays its welcome, and it's hard to say. You know, it's a rare thing to say in a movie that's over 3 hours long. But you're
Yeah.
just moving between all these things so quickly. It's like you're watching. It's like you're watching a mini series all at once. Like you're watching like an 8 hour mini series, like super cut down into like a
Yes,
3 hour movie.
exactly. And I wanted to know because I watch a lot of movies, but I will admit that I don't always get the deeper meaning of a movie. I usually have to look it up sometimes, not afraid to admit that. But for this one, this is one of the few movies that, like, right after I saw it, I could kind of understand it. And I want to get into the story because I think there's a lot going on here. But what did you think of the opening where we get the three coincidences in a row? What did you think of those as a setup to the movie?
It was just like, yeah, I'm just like, what the hell am I watching? Like
Yes.
it was like, oh, cool as hell, but it's just like, again, just I mean, you could say that this could be your answer for everything in this movie, but it's just like no one is telling PTA no at all,
No.
like in this movie. And so, and it's incredible because like it all works for the most part,
Yes.
but it's just like you're watching it and you're like, this is not how movies are made. Like people don't get to just do this crazy shit like this. You don't get to have this like long explanation of this guy trying to commit suicide and then getting blown away by a shotgun blast. Like,
Yes.
like
It's
it
it's
rocks, but
crazy.
you're just like, this is nuts.
And like each coincidence builds on the last one. So the first one is just a guy who owns a shop gets killed by three guys whose last names are Green, Berry, and Hill, and the guy happens to live on Greenberry Hill. And that's the first coincidence. Like, okay. The second coincidence is my personal, I guess, not favorite because it's kind of unfortunate for the scuba diver, but it's like kind of funny in my opinion. But a scuba diver gets picked up by one of the firefighting planes that drop water over a forest fire, and he gets dropped on a tree and dies. And it turns out that scuba diver 2 days earlier got in a fight with the pilot of that plane at a blackjack table because the scuba diver was a blackjack dealer and the guy could not get a good set of cards. And then the third one, obviously, you're alluding to, which is also weird, is a guy jumps off the top of a building to try and kill himself. And as he goes down the side of the building, his mom and his dad are arguing, and his mom shoots a shotgun and hits him as he's falling. And because there's a safety net at the bottom of the building, she gets convicted of murdering her own son by almost complete accident.
Yeah, it's just like I because you're like, what the hell am I watching? Like,
Yes, exactly. And then the line that kind of is, in my opinion, the central theme of the movie is you think these coincidences happen very rarely, but the truth is they happen all the time. And that's kind of the way that all of the characters' stories are intertwined together. These small coincidences of, what's a good one? So the kid who is Stanley is on a game show, and the game show is produced by Earl Partridge, who is
mhm.
TJ Mackey's dad. And then you get all the characters that are in the game show, and the main producer of the game show is the father of, I'm blanking on her name right now, but is it Claudia?
Yeah, it's Claudia.
And then Claudia's in love, or well, not in love, but goes on a date with the policeman played by John C. Riley. There's
Yep.
just so much in this movie. I want to know, first of all, which storyline was your favorite of all
Well,
of them?
well, first, okay, did it not seem like the opening almost seems like a Wes Anderson opening
Yes.
too? And I'm watching it, I'm like, this is like he had like Wes Anderson had to be like inspired by this or something because like I've never seen anything like be as closely Wes Anderson ish as that. But anyway, last note, my favorite. Um, it's like it's so hard to say because they're so interconnected. So you're like, oh, I really like
Yes.
this, but then it like starts to trudge into everything else. I mean, Tom Cruise's performance obviously stands out. I love
Yes.
William. I
I
love,
want
love,
to
love.
talk about that because we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Continue.
Yes,
Continue.
I love William H Macy,
Yes.
just
I
as
love,
a guy, as an
yes.
actor, and so he obviously really sticks out. But then I think John C. Riley just gives like a fucking knockout performance and
Yeah.
just brings the house down. And so yeah, I can name before I name everybody. I'll say those are my top ones. But then everything, I love the aesthetic of the game show, and just like anytime we cut back to the
Yes.
game show, like I was all in during that too.
Yes. It's like it's hard to say. Like I would consider this a very like almost perfect movie, and it's tough
Yeah.
to like pick. I think my favorite is definitely Frank T.J. Mackey, mainly because Tom Cruise's performance, which we will get to, but also Philip Seymour Hoffman's performance, which I think is
Yep.
very well done in this, and
Hmm.
Jason Robards, who plays Earl Partridge, also very well. Julianne Moore plays a great character that I just absolutely hate. One of my least favorite characters in like any movie. I don't know why. I just hate her in this. But talking about William H. Macy, his character in this could literally be picked up and switched with his character in Fargo, and it would not make a difference. Like they
That's a
are
funny
the
call.
same guy in this movie, and I just thought that was hilarious.
That's a really funny observation. Yeah, I don't know if you could switch his character with his character in Jurassic Park 3, but
Probably not.
I think that would almost work out too. If you had one of the characters in this movie, their kid ended up on a dinosaur island, there's like that like almost would kind of fit
Yeah,
actually. So
maybe a little bit. I could see that. But let's get to Frank T.J. Mackey. Tom Cruise, known as the action guy. We watch all the Mission Impossibles. I would
mhm.
consider him one of my favorite actors. This is his best performance. Nominated for the Oscar for this. I mean,
Yep.
good God. First of all, when he comes out on that his little speech of Seduce and Destroy, I mean, he just plays the best asshole of the late 90s, early 2000s who would be putting on that kind of seminar.
Yeah, and that was just like when you really knew this thing was gonna like it was already like the fire was cooking already, but that was like the gasoline that really just like started driving the
Yes.
ship. But I think God, whenever he's getting interviewed too, I mean that scene,
Yes. I
the
wanted to
things
get to
he's
that.
the things he's doing with his face are just incredible. I'm like, how are you making all these decisions so fast? He's doing so much with his face, but like if
Yes.
you try to replicate that, or like just any actor tried to like replicate that, like you would just look crazy. Like he is so smooth and flawless with his movements, and just but so much emotion behind them, and but it just makes it look so easy. But I'm like, what he's doing some really hard things acting there, and I wish I was more knowledgeable in acting so I could articulate it better. But he's really doing some incredible things in that scene.
Yeah. I mean, and like I was saying, you get this idea that he is this like picturesque asshole. Like this is the one of the worst people imaginable. And you are like, oh, I know this character. I have an idea of where he's gonna go. And then to see that his whole like career is kind of based on this lie that his dad died or his mom died early. No, his dad died early and he
Yeah,
lived with his mom,
right.
and that's what built his character. When it turns out no, his dad left him and he had to care for his mom. And then when he's getting grilled by those not even grilled, just like as those interview questions come out and you can just see him like slink back and you can see all that trauma that he's got built way down in there. And then finally him going to his dad at the end of the movie. And it's not like them making up with each other. Like it's not the stereotypical, oh,
Nope.
Dad, I'm so glad to see you. It's like, he's like, I fucking hate you. Like you are an ass for what you did.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you really feel that. And I thought that was great, especially with Philip Seymour Hoffman playing Phil Parma. I mean, the nurse role that he plays in this is incredible.
Yeah. I mean, again, yeah, it's just like, what can I say besides like, yeah, man, this movie just cooks. Like
Yes.
everybody's great. Philip Seymour Hoffman. I mean, what's new? Just gives an incredible performance. I notably whenever he's on the phone and he's
Yes.
talking and he's ordering all the stuff from like, the grocery store, and then like starts ordering like some bread and cigarettes,
Yep.
and then like orders all like the porno mags, and
And you're like,
then they're like,
oh,
do you actually want the cigarettes and stuff?
yeah.
He's like, yeah, why wouldn't I? Like that's such a good scene. Like that scene does not work the same way with in just anybody's hands. As like simple as that scene, like it's
Yeah.
a fairly like easily just simple scene that would be like fine in any other movie, and he just elevates the crap out of it.
Yeah. I mean, he does that. And then as you're watching the movie for the first time, you're almost like, is he a weirdo that's getting, he gets like 3 different of the porno magazines.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, because he orders them with like milk and all that. So you're like, oh, he's making a grocery list. And then he's throwing those out at the end, just like, oh, whatever. He doesn't want to be seen as a weirdo. But then you're like, no, he's trying to find the Seduce and Destroy ad so he can
Mm-hmm.
try and get Frank Mackey to come see his dad on his dying bed. And I love that first phone call But then his second phone call when he's on the line and he's like, "This is the part of the movie where you help me out," just like
Yes.
almost like meta fourth wall breaking dialogue.
Right, but it still feels like so in character for him to say that.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, he kills it. It's hard to like break down the movie because everything is just based on the performances, and when you try and talk about the stories without like the connectedness, it just sounds crazy. But I want to know if you got the ideas of like all these the sins of the father fall on his children and the childhood trauma that goes on with a lot of
Yes.
these characters that connects them.
Right. Yeah. You have all this childhood trauma that, like you said, connects everybody, but that's just, basically the general theme of this
Yeah.
entire thing. And then you have all these references like back to the Bible, which obviously
Yep.
ultimately makes this huge payoff at the end.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just like, of course, it's like it's so weird because the 3 hours do fly by, but
Yeah.
it's like one of the most like melancholic, like just sad movies like ever. But it's still like so entertaining and just cruises by.
Yes. Tom Cruise,
which is incredible. Tom cruises by, yes.
I had to throw the pun. I wanted to know if you had ever seen the movie Requiem for a Dream.
I have not seen Requiem for a Dream.
Okay, this one plays very much like that movie,
Yeah.
where your beginning of the movie is like you're setting up all your characters, and they're in pretty good spots. Like everyone's doing their thing. Stanley's on the game show with his dad, and the game show is fine. The only one that really isn't great in the beginning is Claudia, I would say, but Frank Mackey's, he's doing his thing with Seduce and Destroy. He's filling out hotel rooms with everything. And then that middle of the movie, when all those quick cuts are happening, and it's almost like it builds up where like you start out with some bad stuff and it just continues to build with the music, and then you get to the crescendo at the top and then it falls back down and it starts doing it again. And in that middle where Frank Mackey's getting upset with the interview because they're talking about his dad, Julianne Moore's character realizes, she dated Earl Partridge just for the money. And then she cheated on him a bunch. And on his deathbed, she's like, I actually love this guy. And she feels bad for herself. It's just like all that builds up is very much like Requiem for a Dream. Where the beginning's great, the middle is bad, but then the ending of Requiem is terrible. And this, I feel, comes back up. Now, you brought up the Bible verse or the biblical things.
Yep.
There's a lot of subliminal messages in this in the background. Did you catch in on all the 8s and 2s?
I was like vaguely aware of that before I had watched this for the first time.
There are so many of them in there. There's one when first of all the 3 coincidences at the beginning have them. The guy that jumps off the building has them. The blackjack table says he needs an 8 and he gets a 2. And at the beginning when they're hanging the 3 guys that Greenberry Hill, one of them is hung with prisoner number 82 on it. And then the big one that hints towards that ending is when you first get on the game show and there's 2 people in the audience that have signs. One of them says Go Stanley, which is one of the contestants, and the other one says Exodus 8:2. And the funniest thing is they hold that up and then somebody comes out and rips it out of their hands and walks away with it. If you don't know, Exodus 8:2 is from the Bible. Moses threatens to cover, I don't remember who, but someone's territory in frogs. And then once we get to the end of this movie, there are frogs. What did you think of the ending of this?
It's like so perfect. Like this movie crescendos like 2 different times. Like whenever you have all of them like singing that song all together at the same time, it's like, damn, like that's just the best shit ever. And then at the end with all the frogs, like that's my kind of shit. Like any movie with frogs raining from the sky, like yeah, I'm all about it.
And it really just pulls it together because at the end you even have a couple of these storylines that are like, did it really happen? Like Claudia and her dad gets accused of sexually molesting her earlier in her life, and it's like all of these random things that you're like, how much more random stuff can happen and get piled on? And then the frogs rain. It's like, well, if it can rain frogs, all of this could have probably happened. All of this is possible, and it really like hits home, in my opinion, the end of the movie.
Yes, completely. Yeah, and it just kind of like tells you whether you want to see it through a religious lens or not. That just like everything kind of works out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, frogs will rain from the sky. Like, there's like all this interconnectedness, all this BS, all this trauma. But if you kind of just, release yourself, it all will go away.
Yeah. I would agree. I love this movie. Glad to hear you enjoyed it. I got really
Yep.
nervous when I recommended it, and you're like, "Oh, I'm so excited to see this." And then I was like, "Oh, if he doesn't like the frogs at the end, he's gonna fucking hate this." And I was glad to hear that wasn't the case.
Yeah,
Um,
big fan.
Great. I've got two questions for you. First of all, obviously, what would you rate this out of 10? This is a hard 9 for me. I love this movie. It is a long one, so I don't watch it as much as I would like to.
Sure.
Definitely one of those movies where you got to plan your day around it almost. But definitely a 9 for me.
I would agree.
I love to hear it. And then because I know you've seen a couple other of Paul Thomas Anderson's movies, where does this rank for you?
That's hard. I mean, probably pretty damn close to the top. I would really need to go through everything again, kind of like closer to each other. I've seen,
Yeah.
I haven't. Everything's been pretty spread out, but it's amongst his best, if not his best, I would say.
Yeah, I think for my top 4, I think it's this, Punch Drunk Love, Boogie Nights, There Will Be Blood. I think that's my top 4.
I think that's a good call.
Which is really tough because his movies are so good. But yeah, I love these movies.
Yeah, he's just the best.
Yeah, he really. I mean, any movie that he makes, I will be there to see it no matter what. You can guarantee on that. But that's going to wrap up our review. We will get to what the next movie is at the end of the episode. But we're going to go into the trailers this week. We have 2 of them. First up, another horror movie, It Lives Inside. Now, obviously, you're the horror guy. Saw this in before Oldboy actually saw this trailer, so I got to see it in the theater. What are your thoughts on this? I think this could be pretty good based on the trailer, but I feel like I could also be completely wrong.
No, I also saw this on a trailer before Oldboy, and I'm all about it. Like, I think it looks really, really great. I'm super excited for this. This is like probably the next horror movie that I'm like most looking forward to. Besides Five Nights at Freddy's, because I think that's just going to be like a thing, kind of maybe not in the same way that like it was a thing, but just like I love whenever a horror movie kind of takes over the culture for a minute. It's just really fun. Everybody going to see like a horror movie, and I think Five Nights at Freddy's has the potential to do that. But then this is like this is like I'm looking forward to this in the same way I'm looking forward to Talk to Me. I think like if I had to guess, I would say this probably won't be quite as good as Talk to Me, just on first impression watching the trailer one time. But I think this looks really, really strong.
Yeah, definitely interesting. I didn't get, as much of like the jump scare kind of stuff in it. There definitely are some ones in there, but there's there's a really effective shot when she's looking in the closet with their light and then she moves it away and you see the eyes in there. I thought that was really well done. I really am just dying for the jump scare messes that just keep coming out to be done, and like good horror movies get made with decent horror that's not just, loud noise. Something jumps out, which is what Five Nights at Freddy's and Saw X are going to be, which I'm sure we'll be seeing this year. But yeah, this looks like it could be good. I would love for this to be as good as Talk to Me. Have 2 great horror movies come out that, near October would be awesome. Definitely going to be on my radar.
Yep, we'll be there for this very early.
The next movie, which I am definitely all in on, is going to be Reptile. This is a Netflix movie trailer that just dropped, and I got very big Sicario vibes with this movie.
Yeah, I mean, this just like looks freaking great.
Yeah.
It's like, how have I not heard about this or known anything about the development of this? Because I mean, well, for one, I just love Alicia Silverstone, so like she's in it, so I'm just in immediately. Back. Yeah, Benicio del Toro, I love, so I can't wait for that. Justin Timberlake is like will be interesting.
I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. He's made some, like, I love him in Social Network.
He's in Social Network, but
in time, I don't love him, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what else is he even in. I mean, I know what he's in, but like after Social Network, what's his next best movie?
Exactly.
Like
it's that, and then like 80 feet
Inside Llewyn Davis, I guess probably, but but yeah, Friends with Benefits. I don't know.
Yes, is that Ashton Kutcher?
He's in no. Justin Timberlake's in Friends with Benefits.
Oh, I did not know that.
It's Justin Timberlake and Mila Kunis.
Yeah, I'm thinking of something else then. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see it. I'm hoping
it's pretty interchangeable.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Hoping this is good. I mean, with Benicio del Toro's like
No Strings Attached is Ashton Kutcher.
That's the one I'm thinking of. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, Benicio del Toro is a detective. I'm all in. He looks great. He looks like he's going to give a great performance.
Yeah, any movie where like Benicio del Toro's poking around on something is like a good movie.
Love that. So yeah, those are our trailers. It's pretty good. After Slaughterhouse last week, I think any movie would be an improvement almost. We're definitely up
Sure.
there. But we're going to go into our general movie news. And it is a magical week because this Sunday is the second annual National Cinema Day.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of theaters are offering $4 tickets. My theater is offering $4 tickets. And this is the reason we saved our upcoming films, because what are our plans for National Cinema Day? Are we going to be doing anything for it? Reese, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I need to see Gran Turismo. That's like my big thing that I circled. I keep like I would associate the Legend or Last Voyage of the Demeter. So it's
Yep.
gonna be one of those for me, whichever one I don't see before then.
Gotcha. I think I did this last year and it did not work out because I did very poor planning, but I'm going to try and see 4 movies on Sunday.
Damn.
I think I'm going in to see Sound of Freedom early with my parents. I think about noon. Immediately going to another Gran Turismo showing, this time in IMAX because I got cheated out my first time. Unbelievable. Then I think I'm going to go in for a Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire being shown again at our theater.
Ooh, worst one.
Take a little trip. I don't know if it's the worst one.
It is. It is.
Okay. I haven't seen it in a long time. I will definitely have to see. What's your favorite one?
My favorite one I think is 6.
I'm a hard
Which is a weird take. You're a hard which one?
3er.
Yes, that's fine.
Prisoner
That's a really, really great answer.
That one's up there. And then I think I'm going to end the night, if I can fit it in. They're showing Jurassic Park for the
so fun, yeah.
30th anniversary, so I'm going to try and see if I can fit that in there as well.
That's awesome.
$4 ticket. Also, our theaters for anything too. So IMAX is $4, which is insane.
Nice.
I saw Maverick last year and
nice.
IMAX for the National Cinema Day, which is great. But then also discounted food. I'm going to make it a whole day.
Yeah, I think that's a great plan. That's a pretty good spread there too.
Yeah, we can see a lot of stuff. Would recommend to any of you listeners. It's a great time to get out there and see these. But then going into our last thing, we are going to be continuing on with looking at the top 10 decade-defining movies. We have done the 70s, we've done the 80s, we've done the 90s. We're into the 2000s. I've got to say, I am not impressed with this list. I think we are definitely missing some movies on this list. Excited to hear what you think about it. Starting off with number 10. I know you've seen this movie. We're going 2006's The Prestige.
Yep. I think that's a good movie. Like, I'm interested to see where else the list goes, but
yes,
I don't know if that would have been that wouldn't like have come to my mind immediately.
No, me neither. But I've watched it recently. I've got to say it's really
great.
good.
It
might
great.
be on my list. Again, I can't. I've got to think about it, but it's up there.
Yeah, I can't argue with it immediately, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely got to think, because there are a lot of good movies from the 2000s. Next up, another one coming out swinging from 2006. My favorite Martin Scorsese movie that I think we covered on this podcast is The Departed.
Ooh, yeah, good call.
I am a big Departed fan. I know a lot of people think that it was the Oscar that was given to Scorsese because he didn't get other ones. I disagree. I think this one's great. We've covered on the podcast. Go back and watch episode 2 if you want to hear more about it. Going on to number 8, 2000's Gladiator. This one is definitely got to be on my list for sure, and is really might even be moved up with the thought of Gladiator 2 coming out.
Interesting. Okay.
And number 7 is going to be The Pianist. I've seen this movie. I'm not a huge fan. It's very good. I love Adrian Brody as an actor, but mainly more his Wes Anderson stuff. But I think he's great in this. I don't think this would make my list, though.
Yeah, I concur.
And I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this one, because I watched it a lot of times as a child. I don't know why, but it is 2001 Spirited Away.
I've only seen, the only Studio Ghibli movie I've seen is Earwig and the Witch, which is like the one that like Miyazaki's kid did and came out. I've always said I was gonna binge all of them, and I just have never done it yet. But yeah, I think Spirited Away is a good call. Just like culturally, I think that's a good pick. It deserves to be on the list.
Yeah, I watched it a lot. I remember enjoying it, but my parents always thought it was weird. But yeah, there it is. Number 5 is going to be a movie I've not seen, 2002's City of God.
You haven't seen it.
Brazilian movie. Apparently it's very good. Might have to put that on the list. And then here's where the list kind of goes off the rails for me. because we're going 3 movies from the same franchise in a row. Number 4, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Number 3, Lord of the Rings Fellowship. Number 2, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. I do not think they should all be on the list. I think
That's
it's
kind of crazy.
kind of crazy to put all of them not only together, but that high. I mean, they're good movies. I would probably put Return of the King on my list, maybe at like 10, but I wouldn't put the other ones.
Yeah, putting all 3 of them, yeah, I don't know. That feels just like a weird, cheaty thing to do, and
Yeah,
just like why would you want to do that instead of just having 2 other movies to pick? Just like use
exactly.
one as kind of a placeholder for all of them, but whatever.
Especially when, like, it's a trilogy, so obviously you should put one on because I mean, it's a great trilogy. I love the trilogy, but like, Return of the King is widely considered the best one, so why not just put that one on there? But it's their list, not mine. Number 1 is gonna be my number 1. They nailed this one. If you know me, there's no other way this could have gone. Number 1, 2008, The Dark Knight.
Mm, good
I
call.
love that movie. I know it's got a lot of hype. A lot of people say it's overrated, but no, it's my favorite 2000 movie by far. So let's break it down. What movies are on this list that you would keep? What movies are not on this list that you would like to add? If you've got a list ready, go ahead. If not, I can go first if you need some time to think.
Yeah, go first. Go first.
Okay, I'm going to keep Dark Knight at 1, obviously.
Hmm.
I'm going to put Return of the King at 10, obviously. I think it's a good movie. From the list, the other ones I'm going to keep are going to be Gladiator. It's going to go way up, though. Departed and Prestige. I'm doing 2 Chris Nolans on this list. I think I'm going to put Departed at 5. I would put Gladiator at 4, and I would put Prestige at 6. So you might be asking, what's my 2 going to be? Plain and simple, No Country for Old Men. The fact it's not on this list is
Uh-huh.
criminal. That has got to be on there. What is my 3 going to be? You got to put Inglourious Bastards. I mean, the fact that it's not on this list is kind of ridiculous. So then I've got, my 1 through 6. I need my 7, my 8, and my 9. It's tough to pin down what you want to put on the list, especially when there are a lot from these early 2000 movies. I'm going to throw in one that a lot of people probably aren't familiar with. I know we've talked about it already. Requiem for a Dream is going at my 9. I really like that movie. I think
Sure.
it's very sad. It's very much a movie you don't want to see a lot, but it's going. My 8, we're taking a trip back to Paul Thomas Anderson, is going to be There Will Be Blood. Love that movie. I think it's one of his best. And as a result, it's only fair to put the Paul Thomas Anderson movie, the Paul Thomas Anderson movie that I think is better that came out in the 2000s is going to be Punch Drunk Love at 7.
There you go. I think that's a solid list. I won't argue with too much of that.
A lot of repeat directors. I mean,
Sure.
I got 2 Nolans. I've got 2 Paul Thomas Andersons. There's a lot on there. I'm pretty confident in my list this week.
I like it. Yeah, and it sounds it sounds like it. I think I've been being too down the middle with my list, and I need to get weirder with them. And so my list this week will reflect that a little bit.
Okay.
So again, in no particular order, I'm just kind of spitballing here. My first pick, 2009 documentary, The Cove, movie that almost made me not go to college and move to Japan to fight the good fight for dolphins. The Cove, incredible documentary. Check it out. And then I'm going to go Gina Prince Bythewood's 2011 basketball.
Okay.
I got a chance to see that at Crenshaw High where they shot the film, and Gina did a intro, and that was just a really, really, really cool experience. And seeing it there was so cool. Movie really, really, really hit for me. So that one's gonna make the list for me. And of course, this has to be on there. Peyton Reed, 2000. Kirsten Dunst's best performance ever. Bring It On. One of the best movies of all time, and maybe one of the most 2000s movies of all time. Like, it had to be on the list if we're talking about 2000s are such a palpable decade for art. It was like, just be glad like Scooby-Doo 2 isn't going to be on this list, because like it very well could have been. Next, I'm going to go the Wachowski Speed Racer. Speed Racer.
Really?
Maybe the Wachowski's best movie. If you don't want to count Matrix Revolutions or Resurrections, whichever one the last one is, because that's a masterpiece. But yeah, Speed Racer, just one of the most visually stunning progressive films of all time. You got to get fight the good fight and be on the Speed Racer train. Okay, next
Okay.
I'm gonna go. I'm also not counting how many I'm at. Steven Spielberg, AI, artificial intelligence, maybe Spielberg's best movie.
Wow.
Got to get on the train here. I told you I was gonna come out. I was gonna come out a little bold here. Again, okay, if I'm gonna say Bring It On is the most 2000s movie ever, then I have to say this also is in competition. Point Break ripoff, Fast and
Jeez.
Furious. The Fast and the Furious
Okay.
has to be on there. I
Launch a franchise.
mean, a lot of launch a franchise. I mean, what can you say about it? And it just is like you just look at that thing, and if you needed to describe the 2000s to somebody in 106 minutes, you could just put on the Fast and the Furious, and your work would be done.
There you go.
So the Fast and Furious is going to make the list for me, and then I don't think I ended up putting Before Sunrise on my list last week because I said Before Sunset was better, and so I'm going to put Before Sunset on my list this week. It has to be on there. And then as we close in, I don't know, what am I at, 6 or so?
I think so.
It's 6
tough.
or so. It's really tough. I'm gonna go ahead. Do I want to be a scumbag? I'm gonna go ahead and put Donnie Darko on here.
Okay.
I really, really dig Donnie Darko. And I think that, again, it's a movie that could have only come out in the 2000s. I mean, I'm sure you could make the argument with any movie that it had to come out when it came out, but Donnie Darko really is just a 2000s movie.
Yeah. It was close to getting on my list. It was probably 11 or 12 for me.
Yeah, I'm also maybe a surprise. I'm gonna put Avatar on my list.
Okay.
I really like Avatar. I know a lot of people don't. I don't even know if it's a movie, but whatever the hell it is, it's one of the best things to come out of the 2000s, or one of the most notable things to come out of the 2000s. If we're saying, a list of stuff that you have to watch, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that on there. I'm also gonna put Catherine Hardwicke's 2003 13 on there. Incredible movie that I almost picked that instead of Virgin Suicides to do for us. Love 13, and that's going to go on there. What am I at? Am I at 10?
I think you're at 9.
I'm at 9. Okay, so what do we want? Do we want a normal pick, or do we want a
It's your
something out of left
take
field here?
Wherever there have been so many left field picks on here. I mean, I don't know if you can get any more left field.
Oh, you don't? Okay. If I don't want to get any more left field, let's go ahead and put on in our 10th spot. Ooh, there's just so many good picks here. It's so hard. I mean, how do I pick from what I want to talk about? I'm gonna say, let's get crazy. And I think it's Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed.
Okay.
It is. It just is. It has to be.
Yeah. I mean,
even though the first one is better, but the Scooby-Doo 2 is a more 2000s movie.
Yes.
And that's my list.
There you go. A decent list. I think most of those movies too. Definitely a much different list from what I and our website had here. But interesting. And we are going to be wrapping up now. Obviously, we need to name what movie we're going to be watching next week.
What is it? Tell me.
I would be absolutely remiss if I did not include a Wes Anderson movie in my 3 movies that I'm picking.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't not pick my favorite. So we are going to be doing the Grand Budapest Hotel next week.
Nice.
Have you seen this before?
I haven't. I've only Wes Anderson I've seen are Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, and then French Dispatch and Asteroid City. So the first 2 and his last 2.
Interesting. I'm interested to hear what you say then on this one. I love this movie. I think it's my favorite Adrian Brody performance. I love him in this movie. A lot of good stuff. Also, one of the most Wes Anderson movies, art and visual wise, and the whip pans are out of control. I cannot wait for those. But we are going to wrap up here. I want to thank everybody for tuning in once again. We are zooming through these episodes. They are really starting to fly by now. If you did enjoy this video, please consider leaving a like down below. If you want to add to any of our discussions today, please drop a comment. And to keep up to date with my content, please subscribe to this channel. These podcasts come out every single Tuesday. And without you guys, we could not do this. And we will see you next week.
Also, the Scooby-Doo stuff is bullshit. It's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Peace out.
Last one got it in there. See you guys.
Peace.